In St. John's Harbour, in a port more familiar with fishing boats, there is a new breed of ships. They are supply vessels, and they're the workhorses of Newfoundland's newest deep-sea industry, oil. Nordertor, a German name meaning Northern Gate. The Nordertor and her 8 sister ships in the Crosby Offshore fleet are the supply lines to the oil rigs nearly 200 miles away on the Grand Banks. But there's no cargo for the rigs on this trip. Instead, the Nordertor will be setting out large orange buoys to mark suspended oil wells on the ocean floor. In the wheelhouse, the captain, Baxter Allingham, 24 years old, from Brig Bay on the Great Northern Peninsula. The son of a fisherman, now the captain of an offshore supply boat. It's been 8 years since Baxter made the tough choice to leave home and turn his back on the fishery.
I was on 2 minds about leaving first, being young and that, but in order to get ahead in this world, it seemed like you had to move away from home, and that's the reason I left. At the time, I was fishing, but I wanted something different. I saw some of the harder times when things got a bit rough and that, and it looked like a hard way to make a living, and I didn't want no part of it at the time.
Although he turned his back on the fishery, Baxter did not turn his back on the sea. 4 years at the College of Fisheries and Navigation in St. John's got him his master's ticket. In 1979, he signed on with Crosby Offshore as a trainee mate. In less than 3 years, he was captain of the Nordertor.
It's quite a jump from a mate to master, I guess, almost in that short period of time, but I guess it depends on how you're interested in what you're doing. You are and the people you're working for, and so you must be doing something right along the way, or otherwise I'd be probably still mate. They want Canadian masters, and there wasn't too many people at the time that were trained in the offshore, and I guess I fitted in there with the people they wanted.
St. John's traffic, Nordertor.
Nordertor, St. John's traffic.
St. John's traffic, Nordertor, roger, sir, at checkpoint 2 miles from the Narrows, outbound, 40 minutes at checkpoint 1.
Labrador, St. John's traffic, roger.
It's a 13-hour steam to the oil fields. Time to relax before the job begins. Time to reflect on the challenge of running an offshore supply boat.
Going to sea on a supply boat is not the same as going to sea on a tanker or a bulk carrier or a general cargo ship. Everybody on a supply boat has to be able to think. They have more for themselves than I would say on a general cargo ship or a bulk carrier. You know, it's everything is changing. Something new coming up all the time.
Early the next morning, we reach the area where the wellheads are to be marked, and the Nordertor is greeted by that ever-present companion on the Grand Banks, fog. Somewhere out there are small marker buoys left by another ship. They mark the locations of suspended wells, wells the oil companies may re-enter in the future. To help them do that, wellhead equipment has been left on the sea bottom. Since these are prime fishing grounds for the trawler fleets, the Nordertor's task is to mark the locations of the wellheads with large warning buoys, so the trawlers won't run the risk of snagging their nets. Helped by radar reflectors attached to the small markers, Baxter finds the location of the first wellhead. Now the Nordertor has to be maneuvered into position. Baxter works the controls of the ship's 2 engines. Their combined 8,500 horsepower easily bring the Nordertor into position. On deck, the crew gets ready. One of the deckhands climbs to the top of the buoy. His job is to collect the cables that are attached to various parts of the buoy. They'll be looped over this hook, which is being operated by a shore crane welded to the deck of the Nordertor for this job. While the Nordertor holds her position in the heavy swell, the deckhands lay out the chains and ropes. This has to be done carefully. to prevent snags when the buoy and anchor go over.
Hold on that chain there now, somehow. Try to put a rope stop around it. I won't go ahead, eh?
The anchor, a 4-ton block of black iron, is winched into place at the stern. By Grand Bank standards, it's not a bad day. But in this swell, it's going to be tricky, lifting the buoys off the deck with the shore crane.
Crane is secured to the deck and it rolls the same as the boat rolls. So you lift the buoy out of the deck and the buoy is just going mad. They're a bit round, like they're round buoys, and they can move a bit if it was the weather was there a bit bad. We had good weather, fortunately, and we had no problem there.
When you say they're round, what kind of problems does that create?
Well, anything round and the boat rolling is going to move, and it's a fairly good weight in those buoys, so when they start going, there's very little you can do to stop them unless you got some sort of stoppers on our winches hooked onto them.
The captain is responsible for the safety of his crew, but Baxter knows his men can look after themselves.
But men are usually pretty well trained in that now. They're aware of these dangers, and besides, when you got a good trained crew, you don't have so much to worry about, even though you're still got the responsibility.
The Nordertor has taken a few cracks from the buoy, but these boats are built to take much worse than that. Once the rails have been cleared, the buoy is held alongside the ship.
Hold it, that's okay.
While the buoy was being hoisted into the water, the Nordertor has drifted a little. So Baxter takes a quick glance to find the small markers again. Then he maneuvers the ship back on location.
There you go.
Now it's time to shove over the anchor and make sure everyone's clear of those ropes and chains.
See, there's so many tangles and layers of rope and chain difference, and it could easily, like a buoy rope, caught around somebody's leg, and then it's if anything let go in a hurry, somebody standing in the wrong place, it could be a good buoy for them, or they could get seriously injured.
One wellhead has been marked, one hazard that trawlers will be able to avoid. It's a gesture from the oil industry to the fishery, an acknowledgement that the sea has provided bountiful resources long before the discovery of oil. For Baxter, it's a reminder of his family's traditions, of the way of life he left behind. Brig Bay, the small fishing community on the Great Northern Peninsula where Baxter was born and grew up, alongside the rich fishing grounds of the Strait of Belle Isle. It's 500 miles and a world away from St. John's and the pressures of offshore oil. That's why Baxter likes to come back here, to get away from those pressures, to fish with his father and 3 brothers aboard their small dragger.
It's a different feel altogether, and it's good to try something new every now and again. So that I find it's really takes everything away from me, except my mind can be completely relaxed and away from the offshore, and really enjoy it.
These are also special times for Baxter's father, Ralph Allingham, having Baxter home and out fishing with his brothers.
He enjoys back working with him too, eh? He likes to chip in everything we goes out there now. And he been up and helped us to hit the lofters a bit, 2 or 3 days. Went out on the boat a few days, trying to drag a few fish. We're getting a real kick out of it.
It's a different pace, that's for sure. Finding St. John's, living there in the offshore, it's a faster pace of life, and everything seems to be rushed more so than where you're fishing.
Dragging with an otter trawl is new for Ralph, and when you're getting the wrinkles out, it helps to have a family crew.
Oh, we've got a perfect crew. They're pretty young, but seems like everybody chips in and takes right out, goes on from there.
Good having a family crew, is it?
Yeah, well, that's the point, I suppose. One fella don't mind telling the other fella off to get their time, and it works out all right. Well, everybody's new, see? And All lands could be skippered at one time, you know, there's no problems. What you should do, what you shouldn't do. You got to, some got good ideas and some not so good, so you got to work out the best ones, see?
On these visits home, Baxter's brothers often ask him about life in the offshore. But so far, none has talked of doing as he did, of leaving Brig Bay.
No, I have never heard. I think they're going to stick to fishing. They're having a good time. Fishing is not such a bad job anymore as it used to be, but I think they're quite happy where they are.
But would you ever contemplate going back and getting your own boat or going back and fishing with your family?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and because it's a different pace of life and it's a more relaxing pace, I think maybe if time comes up and I really think strong enough about it, I will go back.
At the time he went away there, it didn't look too good. Fishing didn't look that bright, and I thought he should go and take a course on something. So that was what he picked, was nautical science and navigation. He's aiming for foreign going. Captain now, at the present time, he got his own captain, his own trade, anywhere in Canada. But he got another couple more papers right for foreign going. So he's doing pretty well.
He's come a long way in 10 years, hasn't he? Is it 10 years or 8 years?
No, well, there's only about 7.5 years. He's come a good ways for a young man. He's done well. He made a lot of progress in his course, and I've seen a good bit of. He's covered a lot of water in them few years. They've been all down around the southern everywhere, down around the Bahamas and them places down. Some very good trips down there.
You must be pretty proud of him, are you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. He's he done better than I expected him to do, to tell you the truth, but I'm pretty proud of him now. He gone this far. I'd like to see him finish his course now and get that last ticket. You know, and then he decide from there where he goes from there. But I'm pretty proud of him. Yes.
The day's fishing is over, and soon Baxter's visit home will be over as well. At the supper table, there's talk of the day's catch, and of Baxter's going back to St. John's.
I usually get back around twice a year, but it's not always nice to go back home, see how everything is going, how everything is progressing.
Why do you go back? What are your main reasons for going back?
Well, go back to see the family and see how they're making out and what changes have taken place there since I left. Sometimes you hope the time will keep going on the way it is because it's so different, so peaceful. There's nothing rushed and things seem like so quiet, much quieter, and no responsibility there. And you hope time will go on until you get tired of it, and that could be a long time.
Dawn on the Grand Banks. An intricate island of steel, the drill rig 706 rides on the easy swell. While thousands of feet below, its drill bit sinks deeper into the ocean floor. The Nordertor is there, waiting, its deck filled with cargo. Cargo the rig said it needed yesterday. Cargo the rig can't unload until tomorrow. The supply boat captains have a phrase for it. Hurry up and wait. The Nordertor has to steam off and bide its time until the rig is ready for her. Right now, the cranes are busy, shifting equipment to and from the heart of the 706, the drill floor. By the time the rig is ready for the Nordertor, a day has passed. The sun and smooth seas are gone. For Baxter Allingham, this weather is closer to the true face of the Grand Banks.
From what I've heard and people that have sailed in the offshore for quite a number of years, they say that's one of the worst areas they've come up with yet, came in to work in, and they'd rather not be here. We have seen up to probably 60, 70-foot seas out there, so it's not sunshine weather.
Sunshine weather or not, there's cargo to unload. And to do that, Baxter must bring the stern of the Nordertor within 10 feet of the rig.
In a way, it takes experience, I guess, in the offshore, handling the boat at the rig and being able to see the overall job at one time. Handle the boat, see the crew and the cargo coming down and going up at one time, like. Usually you have to look at the size of everything before you do a job at a rig. You have to size up safety first of the crew that's working on deck. If it's safe for them to discharge or take on cargo, you know. And sometimes like at the rigs, your boat will pitch probably about 20 feet, and that's moving fairly regularly up and down. It's quite a heave, and you got to be on your toes all the time. It's about especially taking into consideration the safety of the men down there. They're number one.
Even when seas aren't that rough, accidents can happen. That's why an important rule for unloading a supply ship is, you don't assume you're clear once the cargo is hoisted off the deck.
You're working cargo and you're standing under a lot of it, when you're lifting it to the rigs and loading it on board. So it is dangerous all the way around. You look at it that way, because there's nothing that's made that can't break, and you're using ropes and wire ropes and poly ropes and different type of ropes, synthetic ropes. So it's easy can break, and things have broken before, and there's always that danger there.
At all times at the rig, the captain has to watch the seas and the conditions on deck to make sure it's safe to keep working. In this industry, with its big dollars and big pressures, that's a lot of responsibility.
I guess you could look at it that way, but don't always try to look at the responsibility, because if you think about it a lot, you'll probably worry about it, and then you're not being as alert as you should.
When cargo is being lifted to the rig, timing is crucial. In a big swell, the boat could drop out from beneath the container just as it's hooked on. The container could swing free like a wrecking ball, or the cables could snap with the sudden tension. The deckhands can't afford to relax for a moment, nor can the captain.
You'll find with a boat even about 20-30 feet and a crane that the rig is practically stationary, or it's moving in the opposite way at the time. You have to compensate for that as to when you can hook it on and the crew member to get clear in time. You're talking about working your boat as close to is about between 5 and 10 feet off the rig, and trying to hold her there while they're hooking up cargo to be discharged.
So but it must be, you must need a strong or good sense of timing sometimes, if just to time the way the boat is heaving up and down to make sure that, you don't suddenly get a sudden strain on the cables or whatever.
Well, that sort of grows on you, especially when it comes to handling the boat alongside the rig as to when it's safe. It grows on everybody that's involved with it, especially the guys that are working on deck. They know when, by the feel of the boat, the motion, when it's okay for them to hook on a container or unhook one.
How do you manage to avoid backing into one of those pontoons or one of those legs or anything?
Well, we hope that our engines keep working good, because if they don't, then we're in trouble. Other than that, we got two engines, two screws, so there's no problem there on the bow thruster. So that we got lots of power. We can stay well clear.
The job of unloading a fully laden supply boat can take hours, depending on how busy the cranes are on the rig, and of course, how rough the seas are. Sometimes the deckhands work in water up to their chests, and in winter there's ice and freezing spray. No lifelines are worn. It's too easy for them to get tangled in a winch or a piece of equipment. If the captain feels the weather is too rough or the conditions too dangerous, he'll call the men in. But this was a good day. The cargo for the 706 has been unloaded, but the job is far from over. Supply boats also take cargo off the rigs for shipment back to port. Today, it's casing, heavy steel pipes used to reinforce the sides of the well as the drilling gets deeper. Each length of pipe weighs at least a ton, and there are 3 pipes in each load coming down from the rig. Casing is tricky because it's 30 feet long. Ropes hang down from either end for the deckhands to grab. The trouble is, the pipes tend to swing around, and the deckhands find themselves holding the wrong rope.
They can be a problem. In rough weather, they move around a bit, and they roll quite a bit. So, and they're not lightweight, so it can be quite a problem in rough weather. It's dangerous getting it on deck, getting it in the right place you want it, so it won't move, and that takes a bit of skill in handling the boat and getting her where you want her to at times.
It also takes skill handling a crane. The pipes have to be put down on the deck between 2 rows of pins or stanchions. They hold the casing in place, preventing them from rolling or sliding around the deck. The deckhands must haul the pipes into position and signal the crane operator to drop them. They don't always get it right the first time. The signal is given to lift the pipes again. It's times like these when everyone on deck has to be on their toes, including the land and sea film crew. It was a close call, but no damage was done, and we got a good taste of the risks these men take. But for the 11-man crews of these supply boats, there are rewards as well. Good money, from $26,000 a year for a deckhand to $55,000 a year for a captain. And there's plenty of time off. The rotation is a month on, a month off.
Well, you've got a month on, a month off, so you're talking about approximately 6 months holiday a year. And I will tell you, you need them for the sort of work you're doing, especially winter months. It's not all sunshine working on the Grand Banks in the winter time in an offshore supply boat. And boy, a month on at a time is plenty. More than that, you know, you can do it, but you're not keyed up, you're not the same. You start to get a bit under the weather, like you're not as sharp when you're working. So a month at a time is plenty, and you deserve a month after.
It is a demanding job. A lot of pressure, a lot of danger, and very little room for mistakes, especially in the winter, when the Grand Banks is at its most menacing. But it's the life Baxter has chosen, and he intends to stick with it. For him, offshore oil holds a future of challenge and promise.
It's not taken off as people thought it would, speculated, but it's coming for sure, and the sooner the better.
Do you think it's worth all the risks and all the dangers?
Yeah. Well, it's a job, it's a living, and not everybody's cut out for working on offshore.
There is one more thing to say about Baxter Allingham and the Nordertor, something you get no hint of from Baxter's quiet, understated style. The Nordertor was one of 3 supply boats at sea during that vicious February storm when the drill rig Ocean Ranger was lost. All 3 boats fought violent seas in a futile attempt to rescue the Ranger's crew. Baxter doesn't like to talk about those terrible hours. He calls it a nightmare he just wants to forget. But here's how the man who conducted the American inquiry into the sinking described the actions of the 3 supply boat captains.
I think what they did was heroic. It took a tremendous amount of seamanship. Hold their vessels stern into that wind, maneuver them like they did. You remember the visibility at times was almost zero in the snow squalls. They had They had spray that they described as freezing to ice by the time it hit them. The men on deck were getting washed around, and they had a concern for both their boat and their men on deck, and to try to maneuver to pick up the life raft, the lifeboats, and the life jackets and the people that were involved. I think they did a fantastic job.